Hello and welcome to today's webinar, the One Complete Workspace. My name is Kevin Binder and I'll be your host for today's presentation. Our featured speakers today are P.J. Hough, Chief Product Officer for Citrix, and joining P.J. in our discussion about workspaces is Mark Bowker, Senior Analyst with ESG Research. Before we get started, let me cover a couple of quick housekeeping details. We have a dedicated question and answer session at the end of today's presentation, so we invite and encourage you to submit your questions at any time during the presentation using the Ask a Question window in the webinar interface. Also, this event is being recorded, so after the presentation, a link will be sent for an on-demand version that can be viewed later. With that, I will now hand it over to PJ to start the presentation.
Thank you very much, and welcome everybody to this webinar. Mark, thank you for joining us also. I thought we'd start today by having you describe a little bit of the landscape that you see out there that our customers are experiencing, particularly with regard to their thoughts about the future of the workplace and the workspace.
Yeah, absolutely, PJ. And on behalf of all of ESG, thanks for all the Citrix team inviting ESG along and sharing a very exciting and interesting topic that I get to chat about every day, so thanks a lot. I'll warn you, PJ, I'm going to give you a pretty lengthy list of a lot of marketing challenges, so be ready. The first thing definitely see out there is certainly a situation that when I was in IT, I didn't have to deal with. There was a very predictable environment when I was in IT. I knew the device. Typically, a person had a single device. I knew the operating system very well. I knew the updates and patches that were applied. I typically knew the applications that that person needed. So if something went wrong, it was pretty predictable, although it may have caused some gray hairs over time. It's pretty predictable and easy for me to address it. But today, guess what? A lot of people are walking around with different devices. They certainly have more than one device in many cases. One of the pieces of research I wanted to share with the group here is that certainly laptops remain critical to people doing their jobs and viewed as something that's very important. But what's made things more challenging is people are viewing smartphones and tablets. So as you can see here, 37% of the people we surveyed viewed a smartphone as being critical to their job. And in that case, now a person has two devices that are critical to getting their job done, making more challenging for IT. The other thing that's happened in my environment, I had a set of applications that was pretty well known. Today, applications are coming from all over the place, right? You've got a standard set of applications a company may have had for a very long time. You've got applications that are being delivered directly and designed for a mobile device. And then you can see here just the overall usage of SaaS applications has grown significantly. When we asked the question back in several years ago about which type of apps are being delivered via SaaS model, there's only 38% or so that were saying there's more than 20% of those applications. Today that has grown significantly. And then the challenge becomes for IT, how do I actually manage that user experience? How do I provide, I'd say, even a seamless log-on experience inside it once I get inside those apps? And ultimately, how do I provide access across those different devices? So there the challenges start. Then, if that wasn't enough, you can't get into a conversation without talking about some of the challenges around cybersecurity. Security in general is a hot topic. When we ask in a lot of our research, we find that strengthening cybersecurity is the #1 initiative that's driving spending over really the next 12 months and really, in my opinion, beyond. We also find that improved security and risk management is extremely important when it comes to justifying investment. So if I am inside an IT or information security position, I'm really using strengthened security, and sometimes it's just really visibility into that environment so I know and I can see what's going on to help provide and reduce some of that risk that's happening. And we also asked, stepped outside IT for a little bit and went directly to end users, and we asked them, what's limiting them from using mobile devices more effectively in their work environment? And they responded with, we got security concerns too. We've got concerns around spam, phishing, malware that are all top of our mind that we don't want to, put ourselves at risk and put our company at risk at all. Certainly, we've been tracking things like ransomware, and it's really amazing to see that 63% here have experienced ransomware attack in the last 12 months. But the more interesting part, 22% said that they're seeing that on a daily or weekly basis. So again, it comes down to how am I protecting my environment against advanced threats that may come in through multiple doors, over the network, through an application, directly attacking really even potentially a user credentials. And it really comes down to, I got to be able to protect what I can't see. As I like to put it, IT's lost control in many cases of the device and applications, and they're really left to protect that user identity and the data behind it. So that security perimeter, therefore, is expanded significantly, making it very challenging for an IT organization. Now, PJ, I've got the devices, I've got the applications, I've got the security challenge for you. Now, last one I'll throw on there is you've got this idea of cloud sprawl, right? You've got this idea of organizations are using more cloud or public infrastructure than they ever have. We asked this question a year ago. 75% of folks were using multiple cloud service providers. That went up this year. As you can see, 81% using multiple service providers. And it varies on why they may do it. Some are doing it for the simple reason is that they want to be able to have what I'll say more closer proximity to that cloud service. So geographic location really comes into affecting their decision. And then other companies, and what we find is these typically have been smaller or younger companies, really value this fact of cloud native apps and being able to use those applications across different cloud service providers and avoiding kind of that lock into a single vendor. So what's that mean? I've got to be able to kind of bring your own cloud. I want to be able to manage that, secure user experience, be able to deliver apps, data, desktops to those users, and be able to do that in a multi-cloud environment. And the last thing really we've really understood is that's great. The more reliance on a cloud type of infrastructure and cloud consumption models certainly starts to shift some of the spotlight on what's happening inside the network, and it puts just some focus on the different services and different impact public cloud computing's had on networking. And it really comes down to connectivity is a big one, being able to have that seamless connectivity. It's nothing worse than having a system set up, but then having your users complain or bring help desk tickets about poor performance or connectivity issues. And the other one, the third one there on the list that you can see, the last point is really, there are security, network certainly comes into security tools as well. And again, it's not just visibility out on the end user's desktop or workspace, it's that visibility into the networking as well. So I think IT pros and information security teams certainly have a lot on their hands. It really comes down to how they're going to control access, how they're going to set these policies in place that are consistent across different devices, across different locations. And then really it's all about how do I reduce that risk and be able to get better visibility into that environment. So at the end of the day, I can have happy employees and really reduce that overall risk to the employees or to the business in general. So PJ, I threw out a pretty hefty list for you. I think you can handle it, but it'd be great, and I think we're all anxious to hear, what are some different ways that Citrix is addressing these challenges today?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. That is quite the hefty list, although I will say that it is entirely consistent with my own interactions with customers, not only at Synergy, but since then I've spent a lot of time talking to not only CIOs and CISOs, but end users also in organizations who I think share your perspective on just that shift in the environment and the source of risk that it represents. But frankly, if you step back, many of them also recognize there's a huge opportunity here. that this new technology wave that's occurring, if they can harness it inside their enterprise, they can actually make it work for good. It's not all bad news. And in fact, we know that companies who make this digital transformation are more productive and more successful as a result of doing so. So there's a real motivation here for customers not to shy away, but to figure out how to embrace these trends and use them as a source of strength inside their organizations. And so we've actually been thinking about and talking about the workspace for some time, and we have a very comprehensive vision for what's included in that workspace. As you would imagine, it all starts with the applications that users want to get access to, that they need to have delivered. But as you pointed out, Mark, the complexity of the types of applications continues to explode, but also the endpoints on which people want to access them, then the types of devices. And so the tension between how do I deliver this great app experience and yet not be completely in control of the device is one that IT struggles with, and one that the Workspace app was designed to really target. So at the heart of it, it really is about the application experiences that we want to deliver. One of the things that's, I think, unique in our perspective is just how important content is to users in the context of their workspace. Yes, it's great that I get access to my applications, but very often I'm actually working on a work product that's maybe not just inside that application. It's a document, it's content I'm sharing with my colleagues, it's input into a business process, or maybe an output from the business process. And so making content a first-class citizen inside the workspace is something that we've deeply focused on. And with regard to devices, it's not just about having a great experience on the device. It's also giving IT the tools to manage that device through sophisticated and comprehensive endpoint management capabilities. And as you mentioned, when we think about the sort of complexity of that environment that IT is dealing with, one of the things that they've lost, I think you said that they've lost control on some dimension. I would argue that even if they are working hard to retain control, many of them have lost visibility into what's really going on inside their organization. Their users are out and about connecting to Wi-Fi hotspots and airport Wi-Fi systems. They're launching apps on devices that IT didn't procure for them. They're collaborating using tools often prescribed by IT, but sometimes not, to share content or to do their jobs. And when this works well, it's just fantastic. It's the kind of productivity that we all experience. But it comes with an enormous risk. And given that IT still retains that responsibility for governance, returning some of that visibility to them is critically important. And that's where our deep investment in our analytics platform really comes into play. First and foremost, it is about giving IT back some of the visibility that they had when we all went to work at our desk and stayed inside the building, the days that have long gone. And so now as we roam about the planet in the airports and Wi-Fi networks and arbitrary devices, how does IT get that visibility back? And so we have instrumented our entire product family to send data to our analytics platform that gives IT that visibility. Not only that, but IT can implement rules on top of it that govern some of the behaviors that they want enforced as business rules. Whether or not I can access particular applications if I'm on a particular type of device, or what the policies are for accessing certain types of content wherever I happen to be or whatever device I happen to be on. And giving IT not just a dashboard where they can visualize this, that of course we do, and that's very important, but also having enforcement as a possibility, allowing IT to say that if these events occurred, that at that point that system should intervene. And really this is a very powerful platform that we're rolling out. And so if you look at that overall workspace that contains the apps that matter to me, the content that really is important, and the devices that I use on a daily basis, wrapping around that is the secure digital perimeter. It is a recognition that the environment that we're trying to wrap is around that user and their experience on those devices. So that's really sort of in broad strokes our overall vision for the workspace. And that's really the centerpiece of the announcements that we made at Synergy. Related to it, we announced several products, and I bravely said that we would have them all in market in 90 days, which is coming up shortly. And in fact, the reason for this webinar is to celebrate that 90-day anniversary from the announcement and talk about some of those capabilities. Of course, at the centerpiece is the Workspace app itself, and that is the new experience that we're using to deliver all of this capability to our users. We've also refreshed significantly our endpoint management and our mobile productivity, including new applications, mobile applications that all participate in this. We have extended our secure digital perimeter solution to really embrace SaaS applications, not just published apps and desktops. Of course, we'll do a fantastic job with those, but as you highlighted, Mark, as the application portfolio inside enterprises has shifted to include more and more SaaS applications, we're also advancing the Workspace, expanding its aperture to include SaaS applications and give them the full treatment around security and device portability that you would expect. As I mentioned, Citrix Analytics we announced and will be available. And then we also announced our intelligent traffic monitoring and traffic management solution, which is a key part of that network and secure digital perimeter.
Wow, PJ, you guys have been quite busy since Synergy. It's hard not to be impressed by all that. As I'm listening in, it's hard, not to imagine somebody thinking about their environment and saying, all those capabilities really play across some existing investments I may have with app and data delivery, even maybe around security. So I'm curious, if you could dive a little bit more into some specific benefits around Citrix Workspace, would be great to hear.
Yes, of course. Thank you. When we think about the Workspace, we've been really focused in this last round of engineering investments on what are the end user and customer benefits. And we've really targeted two key customer constituents inside large organizations. The first one is IT. I think we've spent quite some time talking about now just how complex their job has become, and what are the things that we can do to give them back some control and put them in the driver's seat with regard to delivering infrastructure that really helps their organizations be more productive. But we've also focused very much so in this round of investments on the end user experience that they deliver to their end users inside their organizations. And so if I step back at the highest level, there are a few things that really strike me as critical capabilities that we're putting in the hands of organizations. The first one is this notion of business agility. And business agility takes many forms. An anecdote from a recent customer visit. I talked to a customer recently who told me that they wanted to form a virtual team in one of their offices to work on a special project, and found it very difficult to do so because their employees actually had a lot of hardware on their desks that was tied to how they worked. And so even physically reorganizing, that's one form of agility that I think a flexible workspace lets you get at. Of course, it's not the only form. New apps, as you mentioned earlier, get introduced constantly. So what's the onboarding process for an application into an organization, and how does IT regain the tools to help manage that and deliver it in a consistent way? So I think business agility is clearly one of the cores behind the Workspace and the Workspace experience. The second one, though, is about that customer experience. And I think, at the heart of what we're doing in the Workspace, we really are focused very much on a customer promise around the quality of experience of interacting with apps, no matter what network you're connected to and no matter what device you choose to use. And really, this is sort of the hallmark promise from Citrix of the delivery of that application experience, independent as much as possible of those underlying factors. And that experience, in a modern world, is really important to IT organizations. Long gone are the days that you can deliver a poorly performing app or an app that doesn't fit with the way people work. End users have choices. If they don't like the file sharing tool you give them, they'll download a different one and try it out. If the app doesn't perform well, they'll complain and maybe even switch to using a different app in their environment. And so having the promise and the delivery of a great experience on all the devices, on all the networks is really central. The next one, to me, is sort of interesting, and as much as we're doing great work today to enable employee productivity, I'm really excited about some of the things that we're going to do in the workspace in the future. Our view of the workspace is that it's not a place to launch applications, it's a place to get work done. And so the integration of content into the workspace is our first step in making the workspace be first-class citizen in terms of the places I go to accomplish my daily tasks. And we have many, many, many more ideas about things that we can do inside the workspace to make it even more productive and valuable to employees in an organization. As you mentioned, security and compliance remain top of the list, not just, as you said, for IT, but frankly for individual users. I think they have a heightened awareness around the risk and exposure they represent when they travel with employee-owned devices or they bring content around with them. And having the workspace be a secure access method into their content and into their applications, I think not only gives IT some sense of comfort, but frankly it gives the users a sense of comfort as well. And then finally, of course, we are very focused on helping customers optimize their costs and efficiency, and nothing is more inefficient than having overlapping products or unnecessary capabilities in your infrastructure. And really, by building this workspace experience in a consistent way, we're hoping that customers can make the choices that matter most to them with regard to the technologies that they support inside that workspace experience.
Great stuff, PJ. Makes a ton of sense. I've got to sit here and think, too, that I get a lot of questions in the industry from a lot of IT and security professionals I speak to that are ultimately trying to address a lot of those challenges and how you are addressing many of them. And they're asking me, and I think if I'm listening in, I'm wondering the same thing, if you could dip into a little bit about some of those unique things about Citrix Workspace would be great to understand. So as somebody listening can really understand if they're evaluating products, evaluating their existing Citrix investment, or even looking at some of the competitors, what truly makes Citrix Workspace unique?
Great. The focus in the workspace itself, we really started to think about the user and how we could simplify their life. And one of the ways that we've really focused on doing this was by building a brand new unified experience that spans all of the devices. We've built it for desktop, we've built it for web, and we've built it for mobile. And in all cases, we've built it to fit with the application and the desktop environments in which it's working. So on mobile, it feels integrated into your mobile device. On the Windows and Mac, it feels natively integrated into those environments that you're familiar with. And then on the web, it feels portable and fast. So that unified experience is really at the core, and we think that it's a unique capability that we've gone just not beyond delivering applications, but delivering workspace experiences inside that environment in a consistent way. The second, I think that's really key, is we have leveraged our deep portfolio of networking assets to really support the mission of delivering that secure digital perimeter and that security framework for the workspace. When the user sees the workspace, obviously they see an application experience that's running on their local device. What's invisible to them is the power of our Citrix networking that we have deployed in the background to help manage the access control, the visibility into applications, visibility for IT into what's going on in the environment. And really those two together are sort of essential components. In particular, we focused on cloud app control, a way in which we can give IT control over which users see which SaaS applications and the permissions that they get around those applications. So that's really a sort of a combination of technologies that surfaces to the user through the workspace in a very natural way, but really is leveraging the power of our deep portfolio of assets in the back end. we've made a significant set of investments in our unified endpoint management capabilities. As you know, we've always taken a position that we want to support the widest set of devices that are available inside an enterprise. And we announced some new devices like the Workspace Hub and Apple TV and the Google for Business capabilities and Alexa for Business capabilities at Synergy. But we'll continue to invest in that area, not just in the breadth of devices, but also in the depth of control we give IT over those devices. And then within that environment, we've delivered a brand new set of modern applications, which I'm really excited about, with brand new productivity features as well. You know, it's important for us to really think about how we make users more productive. And it's not just about delivering applications as they are. Obviously, that's the first part of it. But anything we can do to enhance or augment the application use experiences inside the workspace is really, I think, a huge opportunity for us and one where we're focused. As I mentioned earlier, we have a very powerful analytics engine that should give IT a very clear insight into what's really happening inside their user base. Our initial investments in analytics are focused around security and user behavior analytics, but the platform is capable of delivering lots of other insights. We have plans to focus not just on security analytics, but very quickly to move into performance analytics and operations analytics that really helps IT optimize and refine their environments. And then finally, we really are thinking very broadly about the mobile user and how they access corporate resources, whether that be inside their own networks or whether it be SaaS applications hosted in the cloud. And so we're leveraging our recent acquisition in intelligent traffic management and traffic monitoring to really help build a robust, high SLA environment for mobile users as they move around, so that IT can really understand what quality of service is getting delivered to users on endpoints, no matter where they are.
It's just amazing to me, PJ. I kind of think of all those capabilities, and a company can't just go through and address those uniquely out on their own kind of island or inside, separate organizations. They really got to think of them holistically together. And it's really interesting the way that Citrix has thought of them together to really be able to help IT not only manage and secure, but to be able to provide that unique user experience as well. So that's great to hear. So I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm sure others are too. So, it does sound like you've been working very hard at this. When's it all available?
Well, the good news is it is available now. And like all cloud services, and Citrix Workspace App is delivered through Citrix Cloud. It rolls out over, a little bit of time to all our customers globally. We're in the process of doing that right now. And certainly, if you're interested in understanding more about it, you should be able to find information on Citrix Cloud and also go there to get early access. We're very excited. We're also, of course, as with all cloud services that are being rolled out, we're rolling it out, getting some feedback and delivering it to all our customers in all of our geographic locations. And so if you don't see it right away, you should know that it's coming, and within the month, we expect to have completed our deployment and rollout globally. So let me add one more thing, Mark. We talked about, what we've been doing, and, we've been engaging with customers throughout this whole time to get their feedback on not just the Workspace app, but on our general approach and strategy around Citrix Cloud. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to say that Epic, one of our very large partners and customers, has approved Citrix Cloud for use with their healthcare system. This is a very significant endorsement for us, one that we're absolutely thrilled, and we believe helps validate the position that we've taken with regard to helping customers move at an appropriate pace to Citrix Cloud.
Okay, great. Well, thanks, PJ and Mark, for the excellent discussion on the Workspace and the Workspace app. And, now that we've had a chance to talk about the Citrix Workspace, let's take a look at the Workspace app in action. And specifically, we wanted to focus on some of our new Citrix Access Control feature set. These are some of the features that add that extra layer of security and control to SaaS applications, which is something that's new for us and unique to the industry. So as you can see here, we've logged into our Citrix Workspace. We've entered a single user ID and a single password. And now that we're in, we've got single sign-on to all of our applications. In this view here, we can see an expanded view really of all of the applications available to the user, but we also have a favorite feature, which makes it easier to navigate to those applications you use most often. And of course, we have the support for the virtualized desktop as well, fully functioning Windows 10 desktop as well. Another thing I'd like to point out too is the fact that this single point of entry to your entire workspace is also completely searchable. So although we're focusing on sort of the new security controls for SaaS applications today, you may have mobile applications, you may have files, you may have multiple desktops. All of that is searchable through the Workspace app. So let's go ahead and enter G Suite. And we can see that we do have the G Suite application in our workspace. We're going to go ahead and click on that. Now, the first thing you'll notice as this launches is that, number one, it launches in an embedded Chrome browser that's built into the Workspace app. This is going to give you single sign-on, but like I mentioned, we're also providing that layer of security controls. And that's what makes the Citrix Workspace unique. In this example, you can notice the watermarking in the background of the application. This is there to maybe prevent screenshots and screen captures. You'll also notice at the top there's no navigation bar. There's no way to add additional navigation. This is a secured browser session. The user can't go anywhere else. There's no navigation bar available to them. You'll also notice that there's no option to print directly from this secure page. And we've also turned off the ability to cut, copy, and paste. So these are just some examples of the additional controls that, in addition to granting access to these SaaS applications, we're also able to provide that extra security that a lot of our customers are looking for. Okay, so let's go out of this one, go back to the application. Back to the G Suite app. Now the next thing, taking this a step further, let's go ahead and launch on the Gmail application. So what we've got here is a couple different examples of how we can provide some extra security and controls. Let's start with this first email here. The email's from Adam. It says, PJ, check this out. There's a hyperlink, and piratebay.org. I mean, that sounds like the dark web to me. So, you know, with support for URL reputation and blacklisting, we're able to completely block access and restrict access to that site and location. The second email here is a little bit different. The second example, this is a Facebook link. So maybe this isn't forbidden, but you still want to be careful. And again, we want to keep this traffic outside of our corporate network. So again, once we click on the link, it's going to launch a secure browser session. Okay, now we're in the secure browser. You can see the Workspace app icon there. But in this example, it's a little bit different. Because we're not as concerned with Facebook.com, again, within this embedded browser, you have access to the navigation bar here. You have access and the ability to print if you wanted. And then you would even have the ability to copy and paste from this page to another. So again, we're able to dial in the right level of security and controls depending on where your user is going up on the internet. Okay, and then one last thing that I wanted to show you, as we go back to our Workspace store here, we notice, as well as all the applications, we have our Windows 10 desktop as well. So let's go ahead and launch this fully blown, fully featured Windows 10 desktop. I'm doing this off of my Mac. And now we can see, here's our Windows desktop. Excellent performance, feels like it's native. And again, you can access this desktop right where you access all of your applications, as well as all of your files, all through that single point of entry to the Workspace app. This is available on all of our platforms, mobile platforms, iOS and Android, Mac, Windows, Chrome, even a web version available for the Workspace app. So, that's a quick look at the great security features and controls that we can apply to SaaS and web applications. And of course, today we've really only skimmed the surface. There's a whole lot more Workspace app can do, including support for mobile applications, support for your files and data sources. So we encourage you to come back, learn more about the Workspace app. We've got some great information and demonstrations available on Citrix.com. So let's head things back to PJ and Mark and do a little bit of a question and answer session. We've got a number of questions that are building up here in the chat window, so let's go through a couple of those. Guys, are you still with me? So let me start with a question for Mark. Mark, what impact is Windows 10 having on delivering a digital workspace?
Yeah, that's a good one, Kevin. And certainly a lot of the things that I discussed or PJ discussed certainly do impact when people are looking at Windows 10. So Windows 10 ends up being, much like a lot of other OS upgrades have been in the past, just a turning point for organizations. But I think Windows 10 is a little bit different in the respect of what I'm observing, that folks have started their Windows 10 upgrades. Typically, the ones that have started are, 10, 20, 30% through their organization. So it's pretty rare that I talk to somebody that's 100% through. But it really does start to make these folks really think about, well, what about security around Windows 10? What about being able to change the way maybe people use collaboration and content? It certainly also looks at, how do I access that environment across different devices as well. So I think the biggest thing I've seen initially is it's really a catalyst to start asking questions in specifically around how am I managing that Windows 10 environment. So in the past, where folks have maybe used System Center, for example, I heard PJ mention some things Citrix specifically is doing around unifying endpoint management and Intune are certainly areas that I see rising to the top of discussion amongst the IT organizations I speak to.
I just want to add a follow-up comment to what Mark said. One of the things that makes Win 10 different, at least in my discussions with customers, is that in prior versions of Windows rollouts, I think IT believed at some point in the future, whether it was Windows 7 or Windows 8, they would get it fully deployed and all of the devices that mattered in the organization would be running that version of Windows. I think the reality now is that even at the end of their Windows 10 deployment, there will be other devices, whether it's mobile devices or tablets. And so as important and significant as the Windows 10 rollout project is for customers, it no longer represents the complete family of devices that they have to manage and support.
Yeah, that's a great point, PJ. One of the questions that I'm seeing in the chat window, it's come in a number of different form factors, but the basic question is this. Do I need to subscribe to all Citrix Workspaces to get the new Workspace experience?
I'll take that one. So the answer is no. We're actually going to have a tier of Workspace App experiences, and one of those tiers, the Workspace Standard, is targeted particularly at customers who are primarily interested in managing access to SaaS applications. It doesn't even come with Zen Apps and Desktop integrated in it. Now, it does come with the other back-end services that gives you the levels of visibility and control, but we recognize that customers are in very different places on their journey to the cloud and to managing their estate of applications. And we're going to have multiple versions of the Citrix Workspace app available, and you can read about that on our website.
Okay, thanks, PJ. And then a follow-up question to that, just to explain that a little bit further. If I'm a Citrix customer and I've got an on-prem environment and I'm looking at this beautiful new Workspace app UI, can I get that great experience if I keep portions of my Citrix infrastructure on-prem?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we spent a lot of time thinking through was what was the likely migration path or engagement path for existing Citrix customers with the cloud. And so what we've done is we've architected the Citrix Cloud and in particular Citrix Workspace app so that you can light them up from the cloud but still use your on-prem Zen App, Zen Desktop footprints. In fact, we think that's a logical first step for many customers to take. And by doing so, you not only get access to things like the Workspace app, but you also get access to things like the analytics platform, etc. And so really we think that a logical first step for many on-prem customers is to move to Citrix Cloud as their control plane, use it as a way to deliver the Workspace application, and then as they begin their migration of their workloads at some point to the cloud, they have a consistent environment and a consistent management framework for managing both their on-prem capabilities as well as anything that they would establish in the cloud.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's going to make a lot of customers really happy. All right, now we've got one from Mark. Mark, how are you seeing information security teams becoming involved with desktop application and data delivery?
Yep, that's one I spend a lot of time researching and thinking about. So there's a few problems, and one is, in general, there's a lack of cybersecurity skills in the market right now, so they're very difficult people to actually attain and kind of retain inside your environment as well. But one of the things that I see that's challenging is, made me think about it more as even PJ was going through a lot of the Citrix capabilities, is a lot of those capabilities involve different teams and different organizations. So when I think of secure digital perimeter, that's potentially, the information security team, ideally having to work with more of a Citrix or desktop kind of app delivery team. If I think of some of the capabilities, PJ, you even mentioned around networking, well, all right, now I've got another organization that's kind of bring into the group. There's specific teams that are responsible for the desktop. There's help desk, and the best catalyst I've seen inside of organizations when they start to roll these things together and think about it in a much more cohesive strategy that's really glued together is when they make organizational moves. So I'll see, for example, one thing that I see happen quite often is somebody that's responsible for identity and access management will move into the security team, and now they're responsible for really looking at that identity strategy. So things as simple as single sign-on across these applications. So that tends to be a catalyst that gets things moving really quickly. It's not necessarily the technology that's holding it up. And I'd say the same thing goes when it comes to, a lot of security professionals right now are really looking at all the tools that they have in their environment and trying to get understanding, do we really need all of these? Do we need all these dashboards and windows? Or can we get that visibility through, other approaches? PJ, you certainly hit upon some of them, but I think that environment is ripe for change. I think that, as you bring the apps, data, desktop, much closer together and provide that visibility, there's a lot of advantage to information security teams that, quite honestly, these organizations are going through that learning process right now and starting to understand what some of those benefits are. So that's a great question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've got time for one more question. I've got one here that looks like this one's probably directed towards PJ. I already have an identity management solution. How will the Citrix Workspace work with what I already have?
That is a very good question. I think at the heart of many of the things we're delivering is clearly an understanding of identity. Unless we know who the user is and what their rights are inside an organization, we really can't provide the level of visibility or productivity experience or even enforcement from a security point of view. So we've taken the approach with the Workspace of integrating with all of the existing identity systems that are out there. So whether you're using a primary identity system or you're using a single sign-on vendor, we're going to integrate with all of them. What you may discover is that some of the use cases for some of those technologies overlap with some of the use cases that we support now in the Workspace app, but our primary focus has been on integration with those vendors and leveraging the investments that organizations have already made in their identity infrastructure.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, there were a few questions on that in the window, so great answer. So as we're out of time, I'd like to wrap up by thanking both Mark Bowker from ESG, P.J. Hough from Citrix for the great information they provided today about how Workspace can help companies increase user productivity, prevent security threats, and improve business agility. And of course, thank you to the audience for giving us your time. A quick reminder, you can check out and register for upcoming webinars and events by going to citrix.com/events. We hope you have a great day.